All right, guys. So look, we're looking at goals without passion are just wishes, and why your why determines everything. And ultimately, I talk about having a very strong reason why all the time. I would have spoken to all of you in one or two of our calls when you joined the program. When I tried to sell you into the program, I would have said, look, we need to have a passionate reason why. And I believe it's in module one, but I'm going to really drill down on this because if I look at historically the guys that have got the best results, and we're talking, 25 pounds and above in a 12-week period, it's always because they've had something really strong and passionate about trying to lose weight. And ultimately, without it, you're going to lose a bit of weight and then you're going to gain a bit, you're going to lose a bit, and it's not going to stick. So we really need to focus on this. So this is why most goals fail. You set goals based on what you think you should do, not what you're really burning to achieve, what you really, really want. Lose 20 pounds has zero emotional pull when life gets hard. Okay. Goals without passion, the first thing you abandon when you're stressed. Think about this, you unless this is something really, really important and it's almost like a must-have when it gets stressful, maybe when the weather's shit, it's snow. I'm not pointing the fingers at you, Bryn, but in the UK when it's dark and cold and it's raining, people don't go to the gym or don't go for the walk, or because if someone's got a gun to your head and it was so important that you had to do it, you'd get it done. And it all comes down to having this massive reason why. And the last thing, if your goal doesn't make you uncomfortable to admit out loud, it's not big enough. So think about this. Think about increasing, changing the goal and making it slightly out your comfort zone. We've all heard it before. It's a bit of a cliche, but it's got to be slightly out of reach. You think, if I did do it, what would it mean to me? You know. So, and the difference between having a goal and a wish. A wish is like, I'd like to lose some weight, and I know I said all of this to all of you. A couple of people say to me all the time, "Yeah, I want to lose a couple of pounds for the summer." Okay, what does that mean? A goal is I want to lose 30 pounds by June 1st, and then when we take it a step further, the passionate goal. Again, this is something I put together. I refuse to be the dad who can't play with his kids without being winded. I actually did a video today. You've got to work out what your why is, and it's going to be different to all of you. It's going to be similar, but it's going to be different. It's going to be pertinent to what and it could be more energy, look good in your clothes, look good out in your clothes. Better sex life, sleep better. All these different things. You've got to find that reason why, and you have to really attach some emotion to it. So you have to actually think about it and just put yourself in those shoes. Almost, what would it feel like to achieve it? But also the opposite of that, the flip side of that. What would it feel if I didn't achieve it? Okay. And only when it becomes sort of real in your head, in your mind, you're going to take action and get the best results. And think about the goals there, the three, or only the last one has the power to get you through to February. Okay. So think about this. I know, you've got kids. That could be the reason is for a lot of the guys that are in the group. Some of the guys that don't have kids, obviously it's not. But you've got to find your why and why. Why do I actually want to lose this weight? Because the number on the scale is just a number. It's what that number will give you. And so, look, we want to look at this. Your why is the fuel, because when discipline fails, your why is what gets you back on track. And I think there's three parts of this really. There's motivation, which people think they need. I mean, ultimately, you need a little bit of motivation to get you to the starting line, but it won't get you to the finishing line. Discipline and habits will get you back on track, get you to the finishing line. But when the real change happens, and I talked about this last week, is when your identity changes. Okay, so the reason people lose 20, 30 pounds and put it straight back on again is because, for want of a better phrase, they just become a fat guy that went on a diet. Right? We need to change how you believe you are, who you believe you are, how you show up, your standards, and that's the identity piece. And I'll link to the other training, put it in the group last week. I don't know if some of you saw it or not. It needs to be visceral, something that pisses you off or scares you. Okay. So everyone's got, carrot or stick, really. It needs to be a bit of both. Kick up the bum, but also reaching towards something as well. But something that pisses you off if you don't achieve this. Because if it's like, yeah, I went for the goal, but it didn't happen, that's not going to drive you to get there. It's not going to help pull you to get there. Okay. Looking better. I just want to look good for the summer. That's not strong enough when you're tired and there's pizza in the fridge. Because the reason people fail comes down to the fact that they don't really want it enough. And I'm not big on being like the drill instructor, like beasting people. That's not my shtick. But you have to have that motivation. Motivation is the wrong word. To have that drive, that the reason behind it, because there's going to be loads of obstacles in the way. There's going to be people in the way. There's going to be environment in the way. There's going to be, look at Brandon, the sleep, there's back issues, you know, that's enough to stop people and say, you know what, screw this, it's never going to work. Then the self-limiting beliefs kick in. Maybe it was never going to work in the first place. Okay. But when you've got this huge reason why, it's not a case of when, it's just if. Sorry, it's the other way around. It's not a case of if, it's when. You change the goal, the time it takes to get there, but you're going to do it. Okay. And being there for my family is completely different. When you remember that you maybe had a parent that died at 52. I use that as an example. I spoke to a guy a couple of months ago, and he said one of the big driving factors was he was coming up to his 50s, and he said, my dad died a couple of years older than I am at the moment. Funny enough, he didn't actually join the program, but it's stuck into my head, stuck in my head. So finding the real why, ask yourself, what will I lose if I don't change? Okay. What will I lose if I don't change? So that's almost like looking at the downside of things. If I don't change, I don't get this result, what will happen? Looking at the doom and gloom, that's a way. What will I gain? What will you lose if you stay the same? There's two ways of looking at it. You can look at it, what will I gain, and moving towards success and the positive side of things. But often that can be more motivating and more make me people more driven is what will happen if I don't achieve this goal. Okay. Kids growing up with an unhealthy role model, missing the wedding because you're dead. Sounds brutal, but it's true. But it's true. Think about this. I'll share my why, and it's changed. I'm 52, as you guys know. 20s and 30s, the why was a six pack. Okay, and my whole life was looking as good as I could, and I had the six pack. And look, don't get me wrong, it's great. It's great to have a six pack. It's not always fun to get there. It's bloody hard work, and no one actually cares you've got a six pack apart from you. You think that women are going to like the six pack. Every time I've had a six pack with my wife in the last 10 years, she said, "Oh, I like you when you've got a bit more body fat." I'm like, "You know." So you're literally doing it for yourself. So the point is, when you're 20s and 30s, mid 30s, six pack was the driving force. Got to 40s, think, okay, I'm thinking about long term health a little bit more here. 45, obviously, the kids had these two a bit later on. I've actually got a 21-year-old daughter when I was 30, 31. But the 5-year-old, if I want to see her graduate, get married, have kids, I'm going to have to make it to about 85 or 90. So that my driving force, my huge reason why every time I go into the gym, I'm thinking, and if it went on motivation, I go to the gym 6 days a week. I've stepped it up. I was going 5 days a week last week. I do 3 weights and I do 3 cardios and I have one day off. And I've done that twice the last 2 weeks, 6 and 6. And that is my goal to do. But there was at least two times last week. It was, cold, it was raining. I didn't want to go, wasn't motivated. But I go because I've built that habit and discipline. But the point is behind it, every time I'm on that treadmill, I much prefer, I don't need to motivate to do weights. If I could do weights all the time, I'd do it. But cardio, 45 minutes, incline treadmill, some sprints on the bike, don't want to do that sometimes. But I'm thinking, look at it as a deposit in the bank for the next 10, 15, 20 years. So I'm looking at the bigger picture. I know this sounds a bit stupid, but this is what gets me through. I'm thinking, okay, no, this session, although I could easily get off and miss it. Okay, no one would know, no one would blame me. It wouldn't even affect me short term, wouldn't affect me for the next 5 years. But I'm thinking this is a deposit. It's like compound interest, putting money in the bank for when I'm 80, 85, if I want to see her get married and have kids. Okay, so that's how I'm thinking about it. So you can see that's huge. That's huge. There's my why. I'm driving towards that because, look, I look at my parents. Their mum's 83, dad's 82, and they're both in terrible shape, both physically and mentally. And I hate to say this, they're literally just waiting for the inevitable. And it's horrible for me to even say that, but they are. The last 5, 10 years of their life has just been terrible, just like aches and pains and drugs and you know, just shocking. And I'm determined that's not going to be me. It's not going to be me. It doesn't have to be me. Unless something goes horribly wrong, it's not going to be me, because ultimately I'm determining how I live in the next 20, 30 years. Okay, so that's what you've got to get. I know we're talking short term. You guys are in this program for 3, 6 months, maybe some of you more, and ultimately weight loss is what we're looking at. But relate your goal to something that becomes really important to you, and you can see that motivation, which we don't always need, you get more of it. You get the habits and discipline that's going to drive you towards your goal. Okay, the why that makes you angry or scared is the one that works. Okay, so look at it from that perspective. It's not, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily scared, but I'm thinking about, I don't want to die. I suppose I am scared. I don't want to die when I'm 70 in 18 years. 18 years she'll be in a 2023. Fuck that. No. I want to get to 100 and everyone's bored of me. Like, I won't be able to hear anything. I won't be able to move. I won't be able to speak. I want them wailing, throwing roses over my coffin. Joking. But you know what I mean. Right. Specific goals and passionate why, and things become unstoppable. Vague goal and a weak why, and you quit in 3 weeks. That's why the New Year's resolutions, the people that started in January, 2, 3 weeks ago, look, the gyms, those of you that go to the gym, the first week in January, the gyms were packed, absolutely packed. I call them the gym tourists. Fortunately, they'll be gone by February. And already you can see the crowd dissipating. I went this morning, there was literally half the amount of people there was there, just 2 weeks ago. Okay. And they're going to quit because unfortunately, a lot of people, one, they've got the whole system built to fail. And most people are quitting booze in January. A lot of people are quitting smoking. They're trying to lose weight. They're trying to change 5 things all at once. They're destined to fail. And they start going in the gym. They're following a program that was never going to work. They don't understand calories, and they're gone. But they've got a vague goal and a weak why. A specific goal and a passionate why. You find a way no matter what. You find a way no matter what. The specific goal and the passionate why gives you leverage. And leverage, and I've used this analogy before, and I stole this from Tony Robbins. I'm sure most of you guys know who Tony Robbins is. He said, if I put a gun to your head, and I said, in the next 6 weeks, if you've got 30 pounds to lose, if you don't lose 30 pounds in the next 6 weeks, I'm going to blow your brains out. What are the chances that all of you, if you had 30 pounds to lose, could lose 30 pounds in 6 weeks, even though that would be more than 99.9% of my clients have ever lost? I guarantee all of you would do it. Why? Because the leverage is high. There's no greater leverage. If you knew you were honestly going to be shot in the head, unless you lost 30 pounds, if someone said be on 1,500 calories, you'd do that. You wouldn't stray. You'd be at the gym in the morning, in the afternoon, and night. You'd hit 180 grams of protein. You'd do everything possible to ensure that you smashed 30 pounds because you had that leverage. Now, I'm not saying a specific goal and a passionate why is going to be close to having the gun to your head. I'm not saying that, but that's like 100 out of 100. Sitting on your bed eating Doritos, watching TV and shouting people, that's 0 out of 100, right? You've got to find where you are on there. Okay, get that specific goal, get a passionate reason why. You're going to get the result you want far quicker, and you're going to achieve a much better goal. Okay, lose weight to feel better versus don't want to lose 25 pounds by April so I can run around with my son without shame. Can you see the difference between the two? Ultimately, the person wants to lose weight and feel better, still wants to lose 25 pounds. Same goal, massively different outcome because of the wording around that and the meaning. Okay, one is forgettable, the other haunts you until you do it. Yeah, you've got to work on the specific goal and passionate why. Right, last slide. So goals tell you what to do. Your why tells you why you can't quit. Think about that. If you can easily ignore your goal, you haven't connected to something that matters. And I'm going to jump in with an example. I wrote a book in 2019, and I've been trying to write my second book for 6 years now. Trying, the reality is the goal is not important to me. When I hadn't written a book, it was huge, and it really helped with my coaching, and I got a lot of clients from it. And it was, I didn't know anyone that else had written a book, but I now know in the second time round, how much work I put into it. It's 6 months, 6 to 8 months of, thankless work. And what I mean by that is, I can put a post up on LinkedIn and you get likes and comments and shares and validation and feedback. Working on the book, no one cares. No one even knows you're doing it. And you have to do the work. No one else can do the work. And it's hours and hours and hours to get it right. And what I know about my first book, the second book needs to be way better. So it's a lot harder. And I've been trying and trying and trying to do it. I set a goal at the beginning of this year. I'm in editing phase of some of the book. The last 2 weeks, I've set a goal to edit the book for 3 hours each week. And I failed last week and the week before. I realize that maybe the goal is just not that important to me. Okay. Because again, there's no leverage. There's no leverage. Do I have to have a second book? It'd be good. The ego would feel good to have a second book. Is it going to get me any more clients? Maybe if I get it published, like properly published, as opposed to going through Amazon. So the reason is I would like to have the second book, but my ego wants the second book. I'm not desperate. It's not a huge goal. And that second book will not get written until it becomes something that's really powerful and some meaning to it. Again, here's the reality. If someone had that gun against my head and said, you need to finish that book, 70,000 words, and make it the best piece of work you've ever done in the next 12 weeks, I can guarantee I'd get it done. Because I'd work on it night and day. And I remember what I did when I was writing the first book. When I was traveling back, this is just before I quit the gym. I was working as a full-time personal trainer in Liverpool Street in the square mile in London, all the finance guys. I did that for 10 years before I went online 7 years ago. I would work 7 o'clock in the morning, come home at 7 o'clock at night, 10 clients in a day, super busy, very well paid one-to-one PT. And it was an hour home on the tube into North London where I was living. And I used to get the laptop out in the tube. The tube was packed, cold, dark, miserable weather. I'd be writing every night. I did that for months and months and months. The thought of even doing that now, I get the laptop out and I write for about 20 minutes and I'll go and get a coffee. The leverage isn't there. Anyway, a little something. That's just a personal example. Okay, transformation doesn't start when you have motivation. It starts when not changing becomes more painful than changing. Okay, think about that. It starts when not changing becomes more painful than changing. And ultimately, that's what a lot of people do when they join the program. I think a lot of people I speak to that don't join, even though when they've got 30, 40, 50 pounds to lose, they're in a position that I call comfortably uncomfortable. So they're uncomfortable. They know they want to change. They don't feel good, but it's painful to make those changes, even to moving towards the goal they want, the achievement, the success. They're comfortably, better the devil than no. But I don't feel good, but I'm actually comfortable staying here, and that's a terrible place to be in. So it's my job, kind of really through, I guess, marketing and then having a conversation to move someone into, okay, come on, let's pull the trigger. You guys all have. Find the why that won't let you sleep, and the goals take care of themselves. And I go back to when I was writing that first book. I had to get that done. I had to get that. It was a driving ambition goal to get that first book published, and that's why it got done. Until I get that back, it's not going to happen. And you need to put this into your weight loss, your health, your fitness. If I look at the guys that have lost 35, 40 pounds, and there was 15 that did over 35 pounds in 2025. It was a huge year for me in terms of client results. A lot did 40, 45, a couple did 50. If you did 60 and 70 in a 9-month period, but all of them had a massive reason why. No one accidentally loses 40 pounds. Doesn't happen. You'll lose 20 and you'll drift back to 15, 10, maybe stay at 20, and yeah, but you've still got another 25 to lose. Okay, so if you want to lose this weight that you've got, and all of you've got a good amount to lose, you've got to get really strong and passionate. Get the goal, write it down, date it, get some emotion around that why.